have to tell you that, Steve. I don't know why that is.
You guys are so funny. Oh my gosh. All right, 1 second. So we'll go live in just a minute.
I don't know how I did. Oh, it's duplicate screen. I'm with you. Yeah, it's like y'all are on here twice. I'm like, I'm seeing double.
Sorry about that.
No, that's good.
We'll clean up your office.
I wish I had 3 screens, but I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Oh my gosh. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know there's going to be a few more people joining us shortly. We are live on both Zoom and Facebook. So if you're seeing us in both places, don't worry, you're not missing anything. There is a slight delay in between Zoom and Facebook. So if you're joining us on Facebook, there just might be a little bit of a delay on your side, but you should be able to get all the information. We are recording this session and we'll take questions throughout. So feel free to use the chat window or the Q&A window and I'll be monitoring that. My name is Anna Tazen. I'm the Chief Revenue and Innovation Officer for the Texas Restaurant Association. And we're really excited today to present this information. It's very timely for sure. Last week's winter storm in Texas left many restaurants in the dark, literally and figuratively, on how to move forward. Power outages crippled many in our industry, and now several are faced with giant bills or suppliers who have simply closed. Bright Kitchen Power is an exclusive TRA member benefit focused on helping members leverage the savings of group energy buying and simplifying the management of your restaurant's power, which is really helpful in a time like now. Their program helps restaurant owners manage their energy costs and make sure that you are getting the best possible pricing, flexible contract terms, and more. And additionally, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Bright Kitchen Power has negotiated deferred payments of electric bills and gotten minimum usage requirements waived, which is amazing. Bright Kitchen Power, of course, is powered by Power Brokers out of Dallas. And our contacts are 2 of the smartest and kindest gentlemen that we have the pleasure of working with. I'm very excited that both of them could be with us today. Please welcome Steve Hardy and Tom Kinzer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, let me go ahead and first of all, thank you for attending the webinar. I know we've got a lot going on, but I think this will be particularly interesting to a lot of people. We had talked a little bit about the format for today. So if you've got any questions, I've got a short presentation to do, but if you got any questions, feel free to reach out. We want to make this as productive as we can for our time here. So let me go ahead and just kind of restate really what happened. And I know it's a lot to a lot of different people. So are we good with the screen?
Looks great.
Okay, perfect. So anyway, I mean, literally, I don't know, what happened with Texas, but it was, a lot of people have different stories from this one. So again, Bright Kitchen Power is, and it alluded that, we do the aggregation energy purchase program. This is exclusive member benefit program that's run by us, owned by TRA. And so we're going to probably be a lot more vocal, visible as we go along and work through this. And also, we're really going to work to make sure that each member's agreement is not having this, one of the things that, what are we going to do going forward is definitely make sure that we're not sending members on spot market type products. So basically what happened, it just got cold. And you'll remember, anybody that's been in Texas, we'll have, we live in Dallas. So what'll happen is a storm will go through North Texas. It'll be really cold, and then it'll move out of there, head to Houston or Austin, and it's 70 degrees here again. What strictly happened was this impact was so cold and across the entire state that we immediately went to record-breaking demand. I think it was over almost 75,000 megawatts. That surpassed any record that we had for August. So, if you think about that, you think about the hottest day in Texas, this cold front smashed all records. So when that occurred, that's when the plant started tripping off. That precipitated mandatory power outages, and literally ERCOT was just trying to maintain the grid integrity. There were some rumors that the state may have, have a meltdown coming, and that, we would be off for several months. That was within 4.5 minutes of that occurring. So the unfortunate thing is try to maintain the grid frequency. If you ever know, a frequency of our system is 60 megahertz. So it dropped down to just under almost 59. And when that did that, that caused those plants to trip off. When they went to take those plants back online, because we'd had a low gas pressure, those plants froze up. So, I won't get into that because there's a lot of, finger pointing, and it's going to continue to be that way down in Austin at the PUC and the ERCOT level. The main thing is we want to make sure that our members are, first of all, have a voice if they were damaged by this. Second of all, that we're here to help offer solutions and get you back to running your restaurants and doing the things that you should be doing. So, at any rate, it was a pretty scary deal. But Sunday night, I knew we're in trouble, and I could see that, and you can just see how the load had we basically had half our load, 48% of our load was off during that time. What ended up occurring was they seemed to have to hit the residential, and people say, well, I didn't lose my electricity at all, and some did. They were hitting residential and small business. Unfortunately, what are small business? A lot of restaurants. Why weren't they hitting the big loads? Because it was causing so much backlash on the system that they couldn't maintain frequency. So unfortunately, the same people kept getting hit over it and over it and over again. And so it was a very high human cost to this storm. It's just one of those deals. It was just such a tsunami. So another thing that came up, and this is kind of why we're having this discussion today, is if you can look at the date range, you see these real-time numbers and day-ahead numbers to the right. They're basically the same thing. They're the spot market, which you've heard about, or you'll call it a day-ahead market. You'll call it LMP. There's a lot of names for this. But generally, if you look at January 21 and February 20, rates are running about $20, and that's a megawatt hour. And what that means is that's about 2 cents. Then you look at the real time, which was at 6,500, and that's $6 per kilowatt hour. So it even gets worse from there. So, at any rate, people that were on that spot market product, what happened to them is they got the full brunt of this. We're still working with ERCOT, with the suppliers, to figure out what these real numbers are. So, as one person said, it's kind of like trying to unscramble an omelet at this point. So I'll tell you about some of the customer protections. I'll tell you why you really don't need to worry about some of this, because we're going to work on making sure that when this is all said and done, that there's something that y'all can all live with. Now, if you're on a fixed product, and your supplier is honoring the price of that fixed product, then you shouldn't have any problem due to the storm. Another thing is, which is kind of funny, I think, and related to it before, you will not be billed for the duration. So if your facility was off for 4 days, you're not going to see a bill for this, this under usage charge. So it was definitely a force majeure event. The third thing is the Public Utilities Commission has suspended all late fees and disconnection fees for non-payment. So you're not going to get a late fee if you don't pay your bill. You're not going to get cut off if you don't pay your bill. And if you get your bill and you want us to look at that before you pay it, please, I encourage you to do that. I think that's super important. We're going to make sure is that when you finally do pay your bill, that you feel comfortable that it's accurate. And then also you may see a big delay on your bill, because right now, as the way it is right now, only 1 or 2 suppliers in Texas has even given us pricing. Most are not. Most are not doing any March starts. And so this is going to cause a little bit of confusion, but literally it's just taking those, we're just doing one day at a time to try to figure this thing out. So it may be a while for you to get your invoice, but
Steve,
yeah.
I had a question. So when it says you won't be billed for the duration that you were out of power, is the supplier, are they noting that whenever they're sending out the bill, they're going to say whenever the power went out went back on? What if
Yeah,
they
no,
have a dispute?
yeah, it's a good question. If you have a dispute, let us know. So what it is, in some supplier contracts, there's a minimum take requirement, so to speak. And so
Right.
if you're not using anything, they may use an estimated bill and bill you for that minimum, right? And you knew you didn't have it, you weren't on. So that's what I'm saying. So it's at first glance, it sounds a little silly. Of course, they're not going to bill me when power's out. But what it means is there's no bills or no electricity. They're going to get you to pay something that you didn't use. So they recognize that. I think they're going to be pretty good with that. The suppliers are definitely, every one of the suppliers that I've visited with is very concerned about this. They're feel very, I mean, their heart goes out to every one of their customers. And so I think we're going to see a very positive, if anything, it's a real wake up call to make sure that we have the type of contracts that we have with Bright Kitchen Power, and that's no spot market rates, and that's also no take requirements, and that's also the ability to add and delete meters, and those are huge for us. The other thing is there are some customer advocacy efforts, and I will send you a couple of websites that we have filed paperwork to abolish. What happened was the PUC had enacted a kind of like an escalator. So if the market prices went high due to price scarcity, if we didn't have enough power, there was a multiplier on there. And all it did, it shot that power up to like $9,000 a megawatt hour. And that was an administrative adder. And it stayed there until we got out of the storm mode, the EA3, they call it affectionately. And so what the deal was, the storm hit, ERCOT pretty much felt pretty good about Wednesday. Prices started going down. So we really had high prices for about 32 hours because of the PUC's enactment of this ORDC, the operating reserve demand curve. It kept it at 9,000 artificially. So this is a showstopper. I mean, this is where you just really can't pay your bill if you're on the spot market. So we have filed under substantive rule to have that ORDC adder removed. If you did that, you'd probably be from, $800 per kilowatt hour down to about $1.80 per kilowatt hour. So it's still expensive, but it's not something that would kill you as far as, being able to pay. The third thing is that there are some websites you can go sign up yourself to, because we just got to make it known to the PUC that this is not, this administrative adder has to go away for it to function. So again, they'll have to take, again, unscrambling the omelet, they'll have to get the power, the payments back from the generators, and it's quite a mess. But the main thing at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you're adequately represented and that you're getting the most, fair settlement that we can get. Again, if you are on a spot market rate, then you should not see any issue. If you have a supplier that says, well, we call this a force majeure, we're going to pass some rates on or higher than your fixed rate, please let us know, because we want to make sure that we nip that right in the bud. So who's impacted other than the horrible losses of power that we had? I strongly encourage you to, if you were on a spot market rate index, it seems that there were quite a few. We're starting to get some calls now. Tom's been addressing them. I've been addressing them from restaurants, because by nature, the index product is a pretty good product in the fact that it's lower in the evening time and on the weekends. And so it can fit the load profile for a restaurant very well. Some of the consultants went after that before Bright Kitchen was on, even evolved. And so if you're on a spot market index, or if you hadn't renewed your contract, I know we're busy and you just didn't get it renewed, then you are directly impacted. And we need to know that. I mean, immediately. The quicker that we know that, the quicker we can start working with the suppliers to maybe get some of those costs mitigated or to back up some of the charges, because the suppliers are hedged to a certain degree. So there is a small amount of power that they can go back and try to help fix this situation with their customers. So just let us know if you're affected by that one. The other one is right now, the best count we have, there's 22 suppliers that ceased operations during that week simply because they could not post the collateral needed to move forward. And if you can't post collateral, you're immediately out of the market. We were supposed to have a list of customers that are affected by on Wednesday. That list is still not out yet. So if you have any questions on your supplier, now, if you're with Direct, you're a TXU, you're with Reline, you're any of the big folks, NG, all those, you're safe, not a problem. So if you're on a fixed market product, you're a fixed price product, and you're dealing with, Reline or TXU, you're safe. If you're questioning whether that supplier would be in business, I think we're kind of the Gritty. Of course, you may have heard about them. They're done. They were done before the storm. But then also we've heard that Entrust and a couple others have gone under.
Do you have the full list of?
I'm waiting on that list. I'm dying to get my list. I mean, I'm calling suppliers about every 2 minutes going, you got the list yet? No, we don't. So we're trying to get the list of suppliers who have ceased operations, and we're trying to get the customers. So it's a little bit like the start of hunting day. The problem that you have, if you have been identified as one of the customers of a supplier that's gone under, everybody in Texas is going to get your name. They will not get your phone number. They'll get the name of your business, and they'll get your meter number. And all the consultant, brokers, sales reps, anyone they're going to be just chasing you down, trying to keep you from being placed on Polar. What's Polar mean? Provider of last resort. What does that do? It's about a 21 cent per kilowatt hour rate. You do need to post your deposit before you can leave it. So we don't want anyone to go Polar. So if we find out that your supplier is no longer in operations, we'll move you over to a safe supplier, and you will never be placed on Polar. You will be getting a letter from the ERCOT saying that you were affected, and you'll have a certain amount of time to find another supplier. So they're not just automatically going to throw you on Polar and you're stuck. But again,
okay, so let's back up just a little bit just to make sure I have this right. So one of the questions that we have from someone is where they can find the list of suppliers that ceased operations. That list doesn't exist yet.
It doesn't exist. No.
Okay. No. Do you know some of the names of people?
The only two that we've identified so far is Entrust, and we have identified Gritty. And those are the only two suppliers that we know have ceased. Typically, if your supplier has generation assets or larger, you should be okay. I can't really think of the names of some of the smaller ones, and I hate to say it because I don't know if they're in business. The problem that I have with this, and this is where my heart goes out, some of these suppliers, and you may be on a smaller supplier, they did an excellent job. They're good suppliers. I like it because it really shows that the small companies can do well in Texas. But unfortunately, because of the way this whole thing happened, and so basically every 100 customers that you had, and this is residential, every residential customer, if you had 100 residential customers, you'd have to post a $1 million deposit for every 100 customers you have. So if you've done everything right in your small supplier, you probably still went out of business. And so they do not post the suppliers because of the Privacy Act. So we don't really get that, but they will give us a list of the companies going to provider of last resort, simply because even ERCOT knows that these people don't need to be there. And so
so the Polar thing, the provider of last resort. Okay, thank you. So many acronyms in your world, Steve.
Yeah, sorry, I should have wrote that out, but I was going to explain it.
It's okay. So, but you have some time before that happens. So who is supplying power to these organizations, these businesses, residents, before they're placed on Polar? How does that work? They're not just without power,
yes.
Right?
Great question. This is probably the best question. Did I give you these questions? No, just kidding. So, so actually, that's a great question. Who's supplying that right now? It's going to be ERCOT and the provider of last resort. Who is the provider of last resort? Typically, it's going to be TXU in Dallas, and it's going to be Reliant in Houston. And I think Corpus Christi is kind of weird. I think they have Constellation. So what will happen is that now another thing that I like to point out, So what happens when the suppliers go under? So if you have 22 suppliers go under, they're going to take that debt that the suppliers left, and it's shared among all the other suppliers that are left. So whoever's left in the market, they get based on their percentage of market customers, they'll pay a percentage and they'll erase that debt. And so the other suppliers left in the system will pay the debt for the 22 that went out.
Wow.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
So
Yeah.
is that then why the polar rate is so high and not?
Actually, the polar rate was there for people that did not have very good credit, or basically
Okay.
maybe just didn't want to choose a supplier. I just said, you know what, I just don't want to choose a supplier. Then they'll go on the provider of last resort, and it keeps everybody. The problem is that what we didn't want to have when we're doing the rulemaking, we didn't want to have all the suppliers going, you know what, Mr. Customer, we don't want you, and he can't find electricity at all. So it typically is people that are credit challenged. Maybe they owed a supplier money and couldn't pay, and they placed them on Polar. On Polar, you have to go and post a pretty substantial deposit to remain on Polar. So we don't really see much on Polar. In fact, I almost forgot it existed until the storm hit. So this is probably a good reason that Polar existed. But you will be getting a letter from ERCOT saying that you've been affected by, your supplier going out of business, and you'll have a certain amount of days to choose a supplier, or you'll be placed on Polar. So you'll have a chance to do that. Hopefully, just call us and we can help work through that.
I'm getting a private message in the chat, Steve, and they said Polar is like really shitty car insurance when you've had a bunch of wrecks.
That's exactly what it is. I'm gonna tell them I'm going to use that one. Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Well, it is. It's like a state insurance pool that we
Yep.
have for
Sure.
folks who can't get into.
Okay.
Same thing.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then remind me, so the step is then, if you're part of this, if you've been getting power from one of these suppliers and they ceased operations, the state or ERCOT is going to send you a letter to let you know you've been affected. How much time do you have to choose a supplier before you're placed on Polar?
This only happened to me one other time in Texas, and I think it was like 2008, and it was literally about a day or two. It takes 3 days to enroll an account in ERCOT, so you really need to act upon it. It's not something that's take a week or so, but it's not immediately at a call, but a day or two, you need to go ahead and start. When you get the letter, start reaching out to try to find a supplier. So one of the things we haven't really verified yet is with Entrust. I couldn't get a lot of information from them, but and to tell you another thing is that who's going to feed right now, and I don't mean it disparagingly, but the attorneys. The attorneys are in here. I'm already starting to see ads. If you've been hurt with the storm, call us. So the thing is we're going to see suppliers are not saying anything. I mean, you can't get anything from anybody because the attorneys went and said don't say anything to anyone. And my third one, this situation remains fluid. I can say one thing and it may change just tomorrow. So everybody's trying to figure it out. We're really going day by day. We've got some TRA customers who reached out, and we are working right now to work with their suppliers to find the best solution. So with Entrust, they said, well, we're moving them all to a company called Rhythm, and we're like, who's Rhythm? So again, we are trying to figure out the best method of resolving people that are on spot market and people who have lost their supplier that have ceased operations.
Okay. Do you have some more to share with us? Was that your last slide?
Sorry. Yep, that's it. Actually, I should have a questions. There's questions, discussions and questions.
Oh, okay. So we just jumped ahead of it. Okay, great. So, all right. So, okay. Can you go back to the slide that has y'all's contact info up, just so if people have questions? I mean, one thing that I do want to let our attendees know is that Tom and Steve are available for anyone to ask questions of, basically at any time.
At any time. If it's 7 at night and you think, hey, I need to call, I've been busy or whatever, it's in the morning, preferably after 6 a.m., but call us. This is absolutely where, and I will share one thing with you that NRG, the president of NRG, which I've known for 30 years, had a meeting on right when the storm was over with, and I thought it was very nice. He'd picked up about 8 of the top consultant brokers in Texas. We were flattered that we were part of that 8, and he leveled with us. He said, "But you guys are the ones, the consultants are the ones going to put this market back together," and that made me feel really good. And really, with all the legislative things we've been working on, we're part of called TEPA, Texas Energy Professionals Association. That's got a ton of consultant brokers on there. But one of the things he said, we're the ones to put this back together. We're ones to help the customers. We're ones to help try to put legislation in place, because let me tell you why. We're probably the most objective party. We're probably the most understood, by the way. But if you think about Reliant and TXU and some of the suppliers that didn't go out, who are they owned by? They're owned by generators. So generators are making a ton of money, but then Vistra, Tom, did you say they lost $900 million?
900 million to 1.3 billion.
Yeah.
We're not know yet for sure.
So they lost that amount of money, but the company that they also own is called Luminant, and they're the generator. So what we're seeing generators have a lot of market power. The generators have bought suppliers. They have bought consulting companies. So there's a good chance that if you're working with a consultant, it may actually be owned by a generator. And so MP2 is owned by Shell Oil, which I don't mean that as a bad thing. I'm just saying that we want to be careful that market power is not the thing about deregulation that I loved was that everybody, we felt like we had a level playing field for everyone. And
well, let me ask you this then, Steve, because there's been a lot of conversations related to this, but is this situation that we run into, and knowing that, the suppliers are owned by the generators and some of the brokers are too, like, is this going to hurt the deregulation market that we've been so proud of in Texas? Like, is something going to change that you anticipate?
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a black eye on the state of Texas. And let me tell you, first of all, I'm a big fan of Governor Abbott. I think Abbott, he's done a lot, and so I don't judge him on any one thing. But I was very disappointed that he was pointing the fingers at the PUC, Public Utilities of Texas and ERCOT, because let's give me a break. He's the one who appointed the members, right? He knows what's going on. He had to have known what's going on. The funny thing about it is the one element of regulation they put in was this ORDC, where it pushed the rates up. That was to get generators to come on. It was a summertime type of rulemaking. And what we ended up occurring was that ORDC that the PUC had put into place and really insisted on turned out to really be damaging to the Texans, to us. And so I think that we've got to see a better way of, first of all, giving price signals. I think we definitely need some customer protections, because if you are a typical restaurant owner and you don't have us or a good consultant to help you get through these things, you could make a mistake, which seems like a really good idea, and then you're severely damaged. So I would like if you're under 100 kWh or kW, or if you're residential, I would like for them to limit options. In other words, if you're a smaller customer, you should not have the index option. It should never be available to you. But it was sold by people, even suppliers and brokers, as the lowest price option. So, again, other things, we kept the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission out of overseeing the power plants. At the time, we thought that was good because we're against any kind of government thing. And there are problems with FERC being over that. I think we're going to see oversight into the generators on that. There were a couple of misstatements. NRG plants, which are Reliant, Green Mountain, and all those, and TXU's plants, they all had been winterized. And so I want to make that case. There's only 560 generating units out there, but these are the big ones. But they had been winterized.
Well, winterized in terms of like what we had experienced before, right? I mean, I don't think anyone anticipated 6 to 8 inches of snow dumped on Austin and then sitting there for a while.
It was it was a tsunami. I mean, it really was. And you think about 73% of the United States was covered in snow. We had Austin in the same temperature as Dallas, and when we're classified as cold, right? And also, what happened was that storm started in Ontario, had gone through, and that natural gas we had in Texas was being sold up north to those people that had it. So when it finally came down to us, we didn't have any. I started calling my gas customers on Saturday, telling them to completely shut off their plants. And one of my customers astutely said, "See, I ain't shutting down because I have plant protection." I said, "It's not going to do good." In plant protection, they pay extra every month so they can run through these storms. It was a force majeure. So I had to call my big gas customers and tell them to completely shut down. And they were lucky to have enough gas just to keep their office from freezing up. And these people make products for Tesla and all kinds of things. And I mean, I knew we were in trouble when we didn't have enough gas. And really what the gas was for, when they told the industrial shutdown, was just for people to heat their homes in Texas. So the freeze up problem was, just the tip of the iceberg. But again, so much misinformation out there. I know there are a lot of mistakes made on all levels, but when you get down to the biggest thing is that we're just no man or woman is a match for Mother Nature. I mean, this was just such a slam dunk. Strangely, though, I didn't realize the sheer power of this thing till Wednesday. And I don't think anybody really did for whatever reason. So I don't know why ERCOT, they spend millions on weather forecasts. I'm still not sure they understood the full impact of what we got that week. So I still don't think they did. So again, I think just getting complacent and just thinking everything's going to be okay. But setting a peak, all-time peak in the wintertime, that's pretty spectacular in itself. Yeah.
Hey, Steve, we had one question from Kathy on Facebook side. She said she missed what you said about Constellation and Corpus. There's no concern about their viability, right?
No. I can tell you no. What I was saying was Constellation's, I think, the provider of last resort for down in Corpus. And so let me tell you who's, if you've got Constellation, if you've got MP2, if you've got TXU or any of the brands that they have, if you've got NRG or any of the brands they have, that includes, Green Mountain and Ciro and, all these different companies, you're safe. And I've already got emails and assurances from their top brass. They're not passing on any kind of extra storm charges or anything. So you're totally safe. But I can't stress enough, if you're on any kind of index product or if you're on an expired agreement, we need to hear from you. We need to start addressing that. And we've got a pretty big list. I'm happy to say we didn't have any customers directly affected by the fact we had a couple of small customers that had not renewed their contract, and they're sorry, and they called us, but and we're going to help them. But the spot market is not a market to be on at any time.
So Steve, looking at this unprecedented weather forecast, right? I think I saw someone post something recently that said they were looking forward to some precedented times, because I feel like we've been using the word unprecedented for quite some time, about 12 months now. What happens when this happens again? If we have another winter storm, that's very likely. What do you think?
It's very likely. I think that there's a couple of things that are bothersome, and you can take it for someone that's on 2 electric cars, and I love both of them. And I drive a hybrid because I need a little bit more mileage, right? So I plug my car in every night, and I love the solar. We've got solar customers. And what's funny is Texas is really the most diverse type of generation. We have solar. We even have some little bit of hydro. We've got nuclear. And the nuclear plants are struggling with the cold, by the way. It wasn't the nuclear plants were putting out half the output because it was so cold, which is really strange. It really leveraged it. But my point is we've got all this different deals. And what bothers me a little bit is we've kind of gotten away from some of the fossil fuel plants, which granted didn't help us during the freeze up phase. But what we're doing, we're leveraging our solar. The solar was frozen up. The wind turbines were frozen up in Midland. So they were all off, and the solar was covered with snow, and down south, And, it's almost ironic that every resource we had, whether it was fossil fuel or solar or wind, was basically inoperable. And so is there going to be, if another storm came in and did the identical same thing, would this happen? I think it would, right? Now, one of the things that they could have done better is there's a DC tie into Mexico and there's one to the east of Texas. We tried to buy some DC, and that's direct current. Direct current moves a lot farther. So these DC ties were both, people are buying power out, already buying through that. So they couldn't give us any power. So I think one of the things that they need to do is also have a better way of leveraging, make sure these plants are on. I think that they need to have a fund that helps customers pay bills when these things happen, because unfortunately we just can't be completely weatherproof. And in the summertime, this is what's scary. In the summertime, we had a really big peak, and the price shot up, and people were on spot market, got hit for just a little while. The reason that that spike occurred is that in the summertime, we can be as much as 50% of our loads on wind turbines, wind source. What happens when in the middle of summer, dog days summer, gets 100 degrees and the wind doesn't blow? We have no generation. And so we are generation short. And I think we're going to start seeing more spikes like this. So what can we do outside of the outages? Make sure that we're securing agreements that are, first of all, fixed and protect us from all these little fees called ancillaries. We need to make sure that we're doing a great job of making sure these contracts are protecting the member interest. But again, the reliability is part of this. I was joking that that ERCOT needs to change their name to ECOT, because the R stands for reliability. And so there's going to have to be some measures. I think those measures will be making sure that we can get power from outside, from other places, when something like this hits.
That's smart. I mean, we did. I mean, many of us learned lots of things about Texas's power grid this past week that we never knew. I mean, you guys, I know, are steeped in it, but I didn't know that Texas was on its own grid, and didn't know that it was an option to even go outside Texas to find something, to fulfill that need. But then from the restaurant's perspective, for preparing for another kind of storm like this, I think they know, to prepare for power outages and things like that. There's only so much space where they can store, backup generators, backup gas. Like they can't really survive and produce food, and receive customers and keep their staff safe. Like there's just not an option. So do you anticipate seeing any other kind of like additional insurance policies or funds started to help them manage some of this?
That's a great question. I'm going to look into that. I know that there's some new products that come out of this, trying to leverage this. I know you have interruption insurance, but what I know now, I don't know about there's anything against that insurance against outages and that sort of thing. But again, I don't know. It's really strange. One of my biggest solar customers, I called him and I said, is there any way you can get, because the prices were like $9,000, and I said, is there any way you can get someone to get up there and, which you couldn't, get all that snow off your solar? Because this guy would have paid his bill for 10 years had the solar been working. But it's such a big solar farm, you just couldn't, it's too dangerous. And then if he did push all the snow off, then if the market went down, which the market should have gone down, that's my point. This artificial adder that ERCOT, that the PUC voted for, that needs to be completely taken away. But I think the main thing we want to do out of this webinar today is make sure and call us, and let's make sure that we're getting the best option. That's the most logical option, knowing that this index price is it can be very vicious. And really what someone said, what is the index price anyway? What that is, that's just settlement market. So when the power plants, the load hasn't been equilibrium. So what happens is that when the power goes out, it goes back in. And if it doesn't go back in, it's stored in a battery, right? So what that does, it just settles the market. So if there's power left over, it goes into the spot market. If someone's under, it's purchased out of the spot market, but was never intended to be a consumer product, and leave it to the marketing people to make a product out of it.
Oh, come on, Steve.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
marketing people.
Yeah,
That's our job.
And tell you the truth, I jumped off on and what I would do every year, I would go on a fixed contract for my home, and then wintertime I'd float the spot market, right? Because it was pretty safe bet. And then it just got to be more trouble it's worth, so I just went on that. But I know a lot of the energy buyers that I work with, they were on spot market, and for winter. And one guy told me, he said, I just shut my heater down, and he said I didn't use it except when I got like frozen, then it would turn it on for a little while just to heat the apartment back up. And he said that over that 3 days, his bill was $900.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow.
So it just goes to show you that even the energy experts sometimes will, that this can, I kind of call it energy crack. You get on it, you get some low rates, and then, but it's been missold, and I think one of the things that we don't often talk about with Bright Kitchen is everybody wants to, hey, what's the best price? Can I get the best price? And we tend to focus on price way too much. And I think we've always done this. We've focused on getting the most suitable supplier with the client, and also the best contract. And then, oh, by the way, let's the market get you a good price. And that's often done by just hedging forward. You may buy a contract 6 months in advance versus today, because you get a little bit better price in the forward market. So again, those are the things we're going to do. Some of the things we are going to do is we're going to push more for putting loads together and aggregating and trying to get a better voice for our TRA aggregation members. But I will send you those sites for you when you put your name on the list, especially if you're on the spot market. If you're not on the spot market, you go ahead and put your name on the list. It's going to go. There's some consumer advocacy groups that are filing with the PUC. We filed through the Texas Energy Marketing Association. TEPA is also filing with the brokerage side. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that the PUC has to do. Tom, we listened to the ERCOT meeting where Bill Magnus had gave the presentation, and there were 5 board members for ERCOT that resigned on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching that yesterday, I think is when it was. I definitely caught that, or Wednesday, I can't remember. All the days are running together still, Steve.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, okay. So I think the biggest takeaway obviously is definitely prepare, definitely talk to these guys at Bright Kitchen. They're there for you as a resource. You can see Tom's information down there, office, mobile, and email. I guarantee you he has answered me really late at night. He's available to help you. I know a lot of the issues that restaurants are facing are very niche and specific to their operation. And so it's important to just talk to them and have your latest energy bill ready to go over it. But they're there to help you. I really appreciate it, gentlemen. If there are no other questions, I'll give you the time back so we can move on. But any final thoughts, Steve and Tom?
Nope, we're here for you.
Let me just add this. There's a lot of misinformation going around in the market right now. We had calls from 3 different restaurants in the last 24 hours, and they're being given some misinformation about what's going on in the market, and they're trying to. The people that are calling are trying to get them to switch their provider now, and it's just wrong. So I would encourage every member that's listening right now that if you have a question at all about your contract or your supplier, to give us a call, and we'll evaluate it for you and make sure that you're safe and don't make a decision that may make the situation worse for you.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Tom. Thank you.
That's it. The scammers are out, believe me. My controller just got an email from Encore saying that they needed to pay some money to Encore, so the scammers are out there. So be very cautious if you're getting calls from anyone that, again, if it's around the energy, tell them to call us. We'll look at it.
And that's a good point. We had a restaurant call us in the middle of the day not too long ago as a manager of a restaurant. She was getting a phone call from AEP, she was told, and if she didn't wire $3,000 immediately, they were going to cut her power off. So she had them on one line, and she called me, and we convinced her that was a scam, and so she hung up on them. So make sure that that if you have a question about something like that, first of all, your utility, AEP, Encore, certain point, they're not going to cut your power. So call us if you have questions like that come up even during the day.
Yeah. That's really good to know, Tom. I know that this world can be very confusing. It is. There's a lot of acronyms. There's a lot of confusion around it. It makes my head hurt sometimes. I know that for our members who are trying to manage 1,000 things at once, it can be really intimidating for them to try and focus on it too. That's why you have our favorite power nerds, Tom and Steve, to listen to. They know what to do. So when in doubt, just give them a call. They're around. We will post this recording later. Guys, thank you for throwing together this education so quickly. I really appreciate it. And James, Lupita, Paula, Christina, everyone that's out there, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.